and their indecision. The world must feel real. Setting the scene is important. Take a moment. Listen. Alright, enough of that. With our world built, flowing, growing, we can turn our attention to the adventure itself. Stories have been written for ages of the plights our heroes face. Pre-published long-term campaigns and short one-shots are ready to be fought through. The world must feel real. Consider the beginner box. It's an amazing way to get your evil paws wet. Now, if you're wanting to create your own, that's a different story. While it is definitely more difficult than a pre-written story, Pathfinder makes it as simple as possible, and will attempt to make it simpler. Use story arcs, mini stories that all develop into a larger story, and can stop whenever necessary. Have a centralized idea that repeats from time to time. Is it war and famine? What about making maps of the landscape? Or the gods themselves dying off? Get creative. And most importantly, remember, the story needs a fitting resolution. Whether it's after one session or 100, everyone should feel satisfied when leaving the table. Oh, the power in your hands is now immeasurable. But let us ensure you have what you need for your world. There are plenty of resources to help build our world, from pre-published setting books, such as the Megambia or Absalom, to tools for homebrew like World Anvil and the tables Paizo provides. Everything you need for ultimate power is at your fingertips. As far as the story, the adventure itself, pre-published books provide everything you'd ever need, and can easily be tweaked with customizations. You'll have NPCs, encounters, treasure, and plot threads so you needn't create anything. But if you'd like to, this system sets you up to do so. Whether from a pre-published setting or your own, character choices and the balance of the system itself really lends to creating something special for your players. Though the numbers may be high, 40 to hit, what? It is easily understood and balanced from both the game master and player's perspective. Honestly, creating something from scratch has never been easier, but that's not to say that you have to. The pre-published setting and adventures are so good that even that other game ports them over. So, my fellow henchmen, what will you do? And myself? Well, I must prepare to speak about the encounters that our heroes will come to face next time. Be sure to join us for episode 3 to learn about encounter design and balance in Pathfinder.
And we're live. Hello. Welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here. It has been a very hot minute since I have been able to do one of these. I am joined by the legendary and Prophet himself. Prophet, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I wouldn't say legendary, but I appreciate
would
it.
say legendary. Don't challenge me on this one.
I surrender.
Yeah, I am just so excited. It's been a long day for the Pathfinder community as of today's recording, but that's okay because today we're gonna feel a little bit of that positive energy. Let's talk about system bloat, the one thing that every creator is terrified about. But before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor, World Anvil. If you don't know what World Anvil is and you're watching this stream for the first time, welcome, hi. But more importantly, World Anvil is an online interactive tool for GMs of every system. It is great for mapping out timelines. It's great for mapping out locations. And it is overall a tool that I still use to this day. If you use code dd8 at checkout, you can get 40% off a 12-month subscription, and just really check them out in general. I am blasted away every time that we get to, do a little promo with them. So without, further ado, and Prophet, welcome back to the channel. This is the second live stream you've gotten to do with us.
I'm honored.
Uh, so how are you doing? What's been new with you since, last time we've gotten to chat before we really dive into the serious subject matter?
I've recently started doing on my brew a day post. I started making monsters and creatures, which I've in hindsight, while I was making them, learned was a mistake. Not because monsters aren't great and fun. They just don't format well for once a day posts. Considering because you have to post them all at once as a whole creature, they don't really make sense, and they take a long time to make. Which is really hard to keep up with the once a day posts.
Yeah, I mean, even someone who's doing a lot of scheduled Twitter posts, yeah, it's definitely just the amount of creativity, because it's not like what you typically do with your here's one class feat, here's one beginning of a subclass. This is I have to go with ready to go at one time.
Yeah.
So are you transitioning back into just doing your normal stuff, or are you going to continue pushing through with this monster a day kind of system?
Well, the only way I want to keep finishing the project, I've dedicated myself to doing the entire alphabet, so there's going to be at least 26 creatures coming from me at some point. What I'm going to do, the only way to keep this up and to keep the post daily and to keep being able to do this, is I'm going to have to take breaks between them and make more product in between, can kind of build back up a backlog between me taking a long time to make all these creatures, and kind of make them on the side. Otherwise, it would not be sustainable. The amount of time it takes me to make a creature is the amount of time it would take me to make 5 or 10 other posts. So it slows me down significantly whenever I do decide to make them. But I like the challenge. I'm learning more about making them, and it's making me a better builder, I believe. And eventually, I will get faster at making them. The way mastery is formed, the way mastery is always formed for me, is that you start slow and you start trying to make it as perfect as you can right from the beginning, no matter how long it takes, and then you eventually build up the speed over time. Don't try to rush yourself on the first couple of times. Try to make it right, and then work on that, doing it right over and over again until you get the pattern, and the quickness will come second to the mastery, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. So let's actually use that as a transitioning point. So
Yeah.
for those who don't know, system bloat is when a system is getting too expansive. It's bloating up in a sense. So monsters is a great place to actually start looking at this, because we've already gotten 3 bestiaries,
Yes.
and a Book of the Dead, with more to even come with APs, with Dark Archive, so on and so forth. What's your kind of thoughts on where the monster side of this, because this is from the GM's perspective when it comes to bloat?
Yeah. It, it's gonna be very hard to come up with too many monsters, in my opinion. There's just monsters are really fun, and you want to play against new ones all the time. And the more people are playing, the more they get familiarized with the monsters, the more you have to make to give them a new kind of fight. And also, there's always demand for different kind of monsters for different kind of games. Like if someone wanted to play a Western game and a Wild West kind of story, then they might want some custom monsters for that, or so to bring up a whole new genre and a subsection of it that might not fit with the current base of the generic fantasy monsters that are in the core book right now. I think monsters are a place where getting too bloated would be very hard, because it only really affects the game master's experience, not the player's experience. And players, I believe, are more susceptible to bloat than subsections like monsters are, because you don't need to read every monster to play the game. So adding a lot more options doesn't hamper anything. You just don't read the ones you don't want to read, and you can play the game perfectly fine with like 50 monsters, and everything you read like past that is just like, oh, more options that I do or don't have to read, and they don't really take anything away from the other options.
So what I'm hearing is that bloat more comes from the player side of a system and rather than the game master's side. Do you think it's possible for a game master to experience bloat in that kind of sense?
It's possible, but it's far less likely. The rules don't change as much for game masters as they do for players. And bloat, a game can be most likely, I think, a chance for a game master bloat to appear is right at the start of the game, because that's when most of the rules for the game master are presented, are right at the front end of the release, and then the what comes after that is mostly player oriented content. But I think a game can be bloated right from the start for a game master of a game, but I think it lets game master content comes out are the monsters basically. That's most of what they get after the release. It's just more monsters and adventures.
So Luigi in chat, also hi Luigi, said, I think bloat is only a problem when new rules and mechanics feel mandatory.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, yes and no. Yeah. I think bloat can occur in two different ways. I think what Luigi is more referring to is power creep. Which what happens when like more powerful options get released, and then it makes the old options obsolete, and then those options become bloat on the system. They're just there, and they almost become traps for players because if someone's using the old stuff and someone else is using the new stuff that's stronger, it's gonna feel bad. That kind of bloat often occurs in card games where they're constantly having to release new cards, but they have to make the cards, interesting for players to buy, so they make them powerful. And then eventually enough powerful cards get released that old cards no longer are playable anymore.
Gotcha. So, unless there's actively a system that is enforcing the rules, because from what it sounded like, Treasure Vault is going to be adding more GM rules, even with the variants on the, like, let's say crafting rules, because that very much involves a GM.
That is a way that GM bloat can occur, and something like it's very subtle, but there are little hints of GM bloat even in the core rules of Pathfinder that we're familiar with right now. Like take for example the free archetype system. That in a way is like an added layer of things that the GM has to take into account now because it has become so popular and it is considered a better experience by a lot of people to play with that system, that it is now almost become mandatory for a lot of tables, and hence adds a bit of mechanical weight to the system. And if a lot of systems come out like that where people feel like you need to play it to have the best experience, that could end up bloating the system.
Oh yeah, and then so what I'm currently thinking is that you mentioned free archetype, a variant that I'm very, very proud of like having at my table.
Oh, I love it. It's great.
Would you often say, and I've seen this online, and I've always wondered what your impression would be of making it part of the core system. Like if we got a Pathfinder 3rd edition based off of, slight modifications, even 2.5e, would you see would you like to see free archetype be built into the system? And if so, would this accelerate the process by having it be mandatory?
I do not think it. I think they made the right call not baking it into the core system. And I'll tell you why. It's because this is something that you need to kind of take a step back and look at this from a game designer point of view, and not so much from our point of view we are right now, because we are so deep into the system. But when you're approaching Pathfinder as an outsider who's never seen the system before, you want to make that first experience as easy to step into as possible. And adding any kind of unnecessary mechanical density is like one extra stepping stone to get past to that first experience.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So, what Real Kill X has said in chat is what I really want from Paizo for TUI is more monsters, more magic gear, more lore books, and upgraded rules on crafting. It sounds like Treasure Vault's
There's a book coming out that you're gonna love.
yeah. Wait till February. They got you then.
Oh boy.
But this does kind of help transition into, I think, would be the crux of this conversation, which is going to be the actual, like, full bloat of the system, which would be the
Yes.
player side of this all.
Yes.
So, do you feel Pathfinder's already bloated, or are we still going into year 4 of Pathfinder? Do you think that we're not even getting close?
That's an interesting question. And I think no, I don't think we're bloated yet. I think there are small traces of bloat starting to appear, and a way that I think you can test to see if a system is bloated is if you take a new player and take just the core rulebook and make a character with that, and then you compare it to someone who used all the rules in the entire system and made a character. How much better would the character using all the options in the system be to a character only using the core rulebook? And I think that is a way that you can measure how bloated a system is.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, that we were running a new person through TUI. Would you recommend just starting off with core rulebook, or would you go, here's all of your options, just choose what you think is cool? Because I personally go with the latter of, oh, these are some really, really cool, like, things you can do. Like, here's Magus. Like, obviously, I probably wouldn't recommend Magus to a first-time player, but, if they really felt inclined to.
Yeah, for me, it depends on the way we're playing. If we're playing online, I'm not going to restrict things because that just makes searching for things harder. Like, if you're using Archives and Nethys, like, having to find only players' handbook things is a little bit obnoxious. But when I'm playing in person, I'm just, like, sitting at a table teaching someone how to play a game, and we're walking through making a character. I mean, I'd probably only going to have the core rulebook with me, and we'll walk through the options in that book together.
So, you mentioned that there are signs of bloat already coming to
Yes.
2nd edition. Where do you think these are? Because I think it's mostly in the background and archetype sections, but I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, part of it's in archetype systems. Like, you with certain archetypes, you can build like better characters than others. One of the like a highlighted item, and everyone talks about this item in Pathfinder, but it changed the balance of things like ever so slightly, and that is the I think it's called the Shadow Signet.
That's what I was literally about to look up. Yeah, I'm 90% sure it's the Shadow Signet.
Because a character with the Shadow Signet is just better than a character without it. There's no reason not to buy that item. It just costs, like, it is almost like a mechanical requirement to purchase this item, or you will be, like, just, like, even if it's, like, slightly more weaker than a caster without it.
Yeah, okay, so for those in chat who don't know what this item does, it is a common item, 10th level, about 1,000 gold pieces. It comes from the Shadow Plane, but as a meta magic action, if your next action is to cast a spell that requires an attack roll against armor class, choose Fortitude DC or Reflex DC. You make a spell attack roll against that defense instead of AC. If the spell has multiple targets, the choice of DC applies to them all. For the fully into Pathfinder people, can you describe how this mechanically will change the game?
Yeah.
The implications of the game choice in this matter.
Yeah. So, there are a certain amount of spells, so we have to make an attack roll against the target's armor class. And that's a little bit harder to do for a caster usually, and what this item does is it allows you to basically make an easier attack against a lower target. And you get to pick the lower of 2 targets. That's almost always going to be an easier way to hit your spells. And it's a meta magic, but it's a free action to use every time, so there's no cost to using it in terms of, like, action economy. And because you can invest in so many items, you get 10 magical items. It doesn't really cost anything to have this magic item on you, and there aren't. It's just a free bonus to your attack. It often ends up being depicted mechanically as like sometimes as much as a +2 to a +4 in certain situations, which is a really large bonus in Pathfinder.
So, because it's allowing this. Yeah, that's really interesting to me, because I've always thought that like fortitude DCs naturally got better as time went on,
Yes.
especially in monsters. I think that having a fortitude DC would potentially be almost detrimental instead of attacking the armor class.
The thing you have to keep in mind is that this is never going to be detrimental because you have the option to not use it. Every time you make a spell attack, you can choose armor class, fortitude, or reflex.
Okay.
You get to pick the best one every time. So this will never be a detriment. And as the creatures get bigger and they get better fortitude, they tend to get worse reflex saves, and you can just target their reflex DC.
Okay, I think I understand now. So, obviously this is one item, for instance. Do you see other items doing this, perhaps? Because I'm trying to think more. When I hear blow, I'm thinking like a giant system, or like a part of a system that's particularly blowing up. Now, items have, I would think, a small advantage of having the uncommon and rare tags on them, or even unique, which would very much limit bloat, because you're putting them into different, like, buckets, like feet buckets, instead of like one giant item pool. Do you think that not only the rarity tag would affect this bloat, or do you also think that maybe having them be per level is going to help satiate the bloat for at least a little while?
I think the rarity system in Pathfinder isn't. I just finished watching a stream with Mark Seifter, one of the lead designers of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I completely agree with his statements that the rarity system is like an unsung hero of helping the system maintain a large influx of new features and new abilities and new items, because what it allows them to do is just like when players are looking through things, they might find an item that came off in like a weird subsection of a adventure that might be really powerful in certain situations or might not in any other situation, and what that does is it helps maintain the bloat to a level of like what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know, what is the word you're looking for?
The word I'm looking for is like we have like someone who can help like look at something for you also. Like you have you go to the you have a buddy who goes to the gym with you, and it kind of like keeps you on track to make sure you do it.
Like a spotter?
Kind of like that, yeah. Okay. The word will come to me at some point, and then I'll say it in the middle of something that doesn't make sense, and it'll be an exciting moment for me and me alone.
All right.
But I think it's kind of like a nice little overseer of the system that helps keep things from getting too out of hand, because it just like kind of narrows down your point of view when you're looking for things to do, which anything that can help narrow down a list of like 5,000 options is fantastic.
Yeah, and I also think that having the level requirement is what really going to help with the bloat here, because all you have to do as a game master go, okay, these items that are above your level, don't even look at them. They're not even like, especially if you're using something like Archives, as more and more, we all become more digitally integrated, especially like with Foundry or Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, the more, or even World Anvil, the more and more that we get into using online play, we can easily just sort by from this level to this level, or specifically this level of an item. Do you think that now introducing this item leveling system is going to help by a little or a lot? Or
it's fantastic. It's fantastic because like when you're looking for items, like there's only a couple things you're really looking for, and like by being able to narrow down to your level of item, like cuts the list and a 20th. You're looking at a 20th of many things, and then from that list, there's only so many things there that you're interested in. And the search engines are getting better and better. Archives and Ethos is getting better every day. And like, if you are a strength-based character and you're looking for an item that gives you bonuses to strength, there's like 5 options. That's not bloated
easily.
at all.
That's not even, like, talking about, like, the ones that specifically, like, let's say you're targeting, like, athletics even. Like, even if you were going slightly more broad than that.
Absolutely. Like, if I go to, like, unique magical items right now, I don't think there's a unique magic item for even every level of the game. Which is one of the... Yeah, there's, like, maybe, like, 40 or 50 unique magic items. I know that list very well because my first project, I made 80-something magical weapons because I wanted there to be a magic weapon for every type of weapon in the game. And there's a lot of different types of weapons. I don't think, like, even adding my 80-something weapons to the list, the system is not bloated. There's only... If I added that system to that list to the system, there'd be, like, 1 magical item for each kind of magical weapon in the thing. And if you're playing like a sword fighter, you want more than 1 option that's not going to become available to level 17. You're going to want like a level 3 option, a level 8 option, a level 12 option, and a level 17 option.
Okay, that makes sense. So my only prescription with that I am personally worried about, and I would love to hear this, is because with certain magic items, you have the, is a specific magic item requirement. Like, if I had, like, a Sword of Singing, right?
Yeah.
But I can't upgrade that Sword of Singing because I can't throw new runes on that. Do you think that is an intentional designer choice, or is this more of a Paizo trying to actively encourage you to go into the rest of the system to find other magic items to suit your whatever need you have?
It's interesting because looking at the weapons a lot, you can still add the potency runes and the striking runes, so they will never truly become obsolete because those are the only things you need on your weapons to keep them like mechanically relevant. And then the additional effects are supposed to, in the sense, mimic runes in terms of power level. Of course, some of them eventually fall off, but the reason they do that is so that a person making a weapon won't feel behind for someone who gets a magic whip, finds one, and then puts all the same runes that the person who spent their entire campaign making a weapon put it on there, and then they just have that weapon plus extra magical effects. So it's part of the balance of the system, so that you can't just like make the best weapon of all time, and that crafting feels meaningful in terms of like making your own cool weapon. It really does push the crafting a weapon aspect of the game, doing it this way. But I think like this is a system that is best solved by adding more weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think that they honestly, the way to fix the system is to like quadruple the amount of unique magical weapons.
Yeah, so do you think that certain aspects of the game aren't like fulfilled enough? Because I know a lot of people, like, the most common thing that I see, and this is something that you and I personally can fill because we're writers. Like, if we need to fill a very specific niche, we can write a very specific niche.
Yeah, often when I'm making items and stuff, I will look for what's not represented at levels. Like, I will go through the entire item list of, like, I recently did snares, so I went through all the snares, and it's like, we don't have any complex snares of odd levels, like a 9, 13, 17, and 6. So I put those on the list of, like, priority make snares at this level so that there's an option at that level for a snare.
This is interesting. So, I am so sorry if I mispronounce your name, just because I have dyslexia. Kashtira? I'm so sorry if I just brutalized that. It said, specific magic weapons should honestly just say how many property slots their effects take. So I'll disagree on this part.
That's an interesting take. I think the reason they don't do that is because I think they would be worried that players would try to turn magic weapons into runes. Because if you knew that this effect was 2 runes worth of effect, then you could just say, I'm going to take that and make it into a rune and put it onto this weapon, and it kind of takes the uniqueness away from the weapon in that case.
That's a good point.
As some weapons do end up falling off for this system, and that is a little bit sad. But I think it would be less sad if there was another cool option, like if you, oh no, my hammer is no longer is obsolete a little bit, it's gotten worse over time, but then you find a cool new hammer that's even better, or using the various level system of items and having each item have a level 1 version, a level 5 version, a level 10 version, a level 17 version, like a minor, lesser, greater, major for each of the weapons, which takes a lot of time, and honestly, certain effects just fall off over time, and even if you did make the DC higher, it still wouldn't be that good.
Oh,
like, yeah.
I think like the greatest example of that is the arrow critical specialization, where they get stuck, but it's only like a DC 20 acrobatics to get out.
Even if the DC went up, though, like getting stuck isn't gonna be as impactful at level 5 as it is gonna be at level 20. At level 20, people teleporting around the battlefield, it's hardly an inconvenience.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Oh, it's cost. Oh, Jesus Christ. I can't read. That's something that GMs can discuss with their players anyways, has happened in several games I've been in anyways, so it'll happen. I agree with that. So, okay, let's move on a little bit then. We talked a little bit about items, but I think what we should do is just hit right into the home, like, where I think the most bloat is right now is the archetype system. Now, I love me some archetypes, but I think that we're hitting a point, and we're starting to see this point, where we're getting too many, or they're not being segmented well enough that we're going to see a lot of bloat. Because I write a lot of archetypes. You write archetypes. I can find 20 more archetypes on Pathfinder Infinite. I can find dozens more in other third-party content. Do you think that we're hitting a point where archetypes are going to start feeling redundant unless you specifically have free archetype available?
Yeah, I think we are, and I think a testament to that is how few archetypes I've made. I think I've made a total of 2 over the years. Maybe? I'm trying to think of what they are. I know I made the wrestler, which ended up getting, the Pfizer made an official wrestler after my wrestler. So that one's a little bit obsolete at this point.
Obviously, it's
they're obviously copying me. Theirs is much cooler than mine.
We'll mention. We'll go. Message Luis Loza about that, and give him our little 2 cents about copy.
And then, aside from that, I think the only one I made is the Brightcaster, which was totally not me watching Shadow and Light and or Bone and Shadow and getting inspired by the character using light as a weapon. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm gonna make an archetype based on that.
Gotcha.
But that's definitely not how that happened. That'd be ridiculous.
God, no, that would be absolutely
Shadow and Bone.
insane.
That's the name of it. It's based on a YA book.
But I genuinely think that archetypes are starting to hit this point where, unless there were a classification that we can put archetypes under, free archetypes is going to have to start becoming more and more mandatory just to cover the broad scope of how many archetypes there are.
Yeah, this is why I wouldn't recommend using archetypes at all for someone's first game. There's too many.
Probably, yeah. I mean, either
already having to look through 7 feats every level can be taxing on its own. Having to say you can take any of these 7 feats or also any of these 52 archetypes is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's just 52 with the APG alone. We're not even talking about Lost Omens or Secrets of Magic, Gods and Magic, Guns and Gears,
or
so on and so
third party content.
Third party, yeah, before even our third party content comes in, we're starting to feel that. Are you okay? Do you think that a potential solution, and obviously I'm just spitballing here, but do you think a potential solution would be a classification system, like the Starfinder has themes, it is very self-contained, where there's not a ton of themes, but they are all still very narratively impactful for your character. How would you go about addressing this? Potentially avoid a blow.
Organization is always going to be very important for avoiding bloat. and I'm not a particular fan of the way that it's organized right now, where it's like profession, class, and things like that. I don't find that
That's
very
not even
useful.
wait, hold on, and that's not even like Paizo based. That is literally
Yeah.
archives based.
That is them
of
trying to come
of
up with a
them.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it doesn't really like hit the same itch, because I have trouble trying to figure out which one goes into which category and where to look, so I end up just looking at all of them all the time anyway, because I don't know which one goes in which category all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think like the best way to handle it is like, if you wanted to use archetypes in your game, is to pick a handful of them as like the game master that you think would be appropriate for your setting, and just list like a small pool of them as options for your game. But that's not really like a large picture way of handling it. That's a really small picture way of handling it.
Okay, so Cass says, I think there are still plenty of room for more archetypes, but some sharing in certain aspects is fine, as long as they still have their own identities, like Aldori Duelist and the Duelist archetype. And every pixel count says they should sort the archetypes in some way, either by theme, function, or complexity. I would actually... I like what you said about, like, picking a handful. I think it would potentially be beneficial for at least the game master's side to go to each character and go, okay, these are the archetypes you can select from. And, you know, like, and negotiate with them. Now, granted, you cannot do this universally. Like, I don't think Paizo could really implement a rule unless it's like, these classes could take these specific archetypes. But at that point, it's not the archetype system anymore. Like,
you don't want to add limitations like that.
Yeah.
Like carpet limitations just don't fit every situation. The problem that causes archetypes to bloat more than things like items and feats is that they're not leveled in the same way that they are. Because whenever you're choosing an archetype, you have to choose from all of them. Imagine like every time you pick an item, you have to look through the entire item list and not just look at items at your level. And yeah, I kind of also have to look into the future too. So you're like, will this give me what I want in 10 levels? And you have to read a lot. It's a lot of stuff to read if you're new to this. And if you're not like someone like me or you who study this game for a living, basically, it's very overwhelming. we are the outliers here, and we're saying it's a little bit overwhelming.
Oh yeah, no, I can't imagine, as someone who like often runs with new players for a particular Twitch channel, like my biggest thing I tell them is just like focus on class. Unless you're like specifically willing to throw yourself in the deep end of being like archetypes, let's do it. Because like I can totally like flip open archives, find the specific archetype I'm looking for, but that's because I know what I'm looking for. Like, I'm legit scared to see like a new player rolling up and just being like, I just want to play a ranger who has an animal companion. Well, if you took Beastmaster over here, you can get like 20 of them.
Yeah, and like it adds an extra challenge to GMs, because I'm running with new players too, and we're going to be using the free archetype system. But I'm definitely not going to give them the full list of archetypes. I'm going to wait till they get to level 2, get to learn their character a little bit, and be like, hey, I think, you know, here are the free archetype systems. I think one of these like 3 choices will be really good for your character and will really fit with the themes that you've been building up to. If you want, or if you have a different concept in mind, let me know, and I will look through the list for you. It adds an extra layer to it.
So, what if? Let's just because, you know, we're live and obviously I can't, you know, write everything down and then, you know, implement the system later. What if you had it so every archetype fell under a classification of what utility they serve? So it's not so overwhelming. Like, okay, there are specifically archetypes that are very good at martial melee. Like, Duelist is very much a martial melee based. You have to have an agile weapon in one hand and, you know, a free hand here. What do you think about that term of classification, where it's based on what utility they fall under, and a little bit less of the you know, like leveling system for it?
I think that'd be very useful if you divided it like you can start with like 3 major, or like probably like 4 major divisions. Like you might want to do like martial, magic, skill, etc. And then from there you could go like melee martial, ranged martial, unarmed martial. And then for spells you could obviously like separate it in various different ways. And then for skills you can separate it by the skills that they're hoping to adjust in a certain way, and then the etc. one will probably be like really big and just full of random stuff.
Every pixel count says perhaps Paizo should /make something like Path Builder or Wanderer's Guide. They could even put in a system that recommends archetypes and feats based on previous choices. Guess what? They're doing that. Pathfinder Nexus. Check it out. I'm not sponsored by it. I like plugging it every now and then. I think Foundry also does a pretty good job with this. I know it's not specifically in the sense that it's actively telling you, but I think online resources have this great ability of being an overwhelming gift upon the first reading, but has a great sorting section. You know what I mean? Like it can sort everything very, very well.
It can. Another way that obviously we cannot go back to the past. I think naming the archetypes is a really important step. I think it's the most important step of the archetype, is being able to simplify what the archetype does with only its name. That's easy and clear for people to understand without having to read through 10 feats to figure it out.
Can you give me an example of Paizo not doing this, perhaps?
The Viking archetype.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about why? Because when I hear Viking, I hear the Thor, the Norse mythology. You know, like the very historical precedent for it.
Oh, so you see Thor, Norse. You don't. This is not a shield archetype to you.
I guess.
No. The joke is that shield's not the first thing.
Yeah. I get the joke you're going for here. I'm just tired.
Yeah, I think like 60 to 70% of the feats in the Viking archetype involve shields in some way, which is not the first thing I think of when I think of a Viking.
Oh yeah, no. I'm thinking a little bit more along the lines of barbarian, where it's
exactly.
I think that TTRPG mindset has set in at this point, where I hear Viking, I see Berserker, my mind goes barbarian.
No, I think you're completely right. I think that's what most people would think of when they think of a Viking, and then the Viking archetype doesn't really deliver that. It's all about like breaking your shield and then drawing a new shield really quickly once your shield breaks, and it's like you put a lot of like mechanical density into like this Viking shield concept, and if I want to be a Viking holding a great axe, then I get nothing out of this archetype.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good point. So you think that naming has something to do with it? Do you think that maybe also game masters actively going in could stop the blow if they like say, okay, anything Lost Omens related, anything that says like Eldori or try to just think of like, the lost, like very Lost Omens, like Pathfinder Agent, Hell Knight, Signifier, so on and so forth.
All system faults can be corrected with a really good game master. So like saying we can fix it with the game master is like,
I'm trying to also think about those newer game masters who don't know what they're doing. I won't say bad, because obviously that would be very prescriptive of me to say, but like someone who's very new to either TTRPG,
someone who did not spend 300 hours studying the system. The normal game masters. I think having like a list is very useful. But even like that is in a way more bloat. Depending on how well the list is implemented and made, and also the fact the list will have to be constantly updated. So this isn't really something that could be printed. It'll have to be a digital version that's constantly updated all the time whenever a new thing comes out. And then what that would do though is it would make third-party content harder to implement, because I don't think that anyone's going to curate a list with every single third-party creation ever made. And so whenever
if people paid me $1,000 a month, I would do it. You hear that, chat? You pay me enough, I'll cultivate all the third-party. Roll for Combat, Sinclair's my own, and Profits. That one guy on Twitter. That all of them. Just I will scour
there's a lot of
the
them.
internet.
There's a lot that probably even you and I don't know about. The thing about third parties, it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, I love me some third party. I love working with third party. Obviously, because I own a company, but more in the sense that it's definitely a lot of.
Oh, you own a company? What's it called?
Yeah. Eldritch Osiris Game, something like that.
Oh wow,
Some
really cool.
nerd.
I'll have to go check it out.
There's a website, I think. You can check out the Twitter. I don't know. I don't think this is time for talking about those nerds. Okay, so with Bloat specifically, then I also would like to point out the background system, because the background is only the classifications that I've seen are uncommon and rare, because there is no sorting system for that. They're all very common, and there is a lot of backgrounds, and that is before any third-party stuff gets to even like get in there.
I had a really hard time finding when I was making backgrounds that weren't not already created, because they really did just about come up with every possible background already. There,
and they're adding more. Like, it's already confirmed that Dark Archive is getting more.
It really is crazy. Like at this point, like the only archetypes you can make are things for like very specific setting based things, in my opinion. But I don't think the backgrounds are as much as an issue, because how low impact they are actually on the game, which is a thing all of it in and of itself. Having a lot like a better organization system would be nice. But it's one of those things where you only have to look at it once, and the decision really doesn't matter in the long scheme of character creation. It's mostly just like for flavor, and I think you get like one skill feat and something else.
You get one skill feat, a lore, and 2 ability boosts, but one of them is determined by your specific.
Yeah, so most of the way people end up shorting it is to just short it by the ability boost they want, and then pick from that list. That'd be a really easy way to short it. But like it's one of those things where like even Paizo recommends it, that you come into the character creation with a concept already in mind, and then you build from there, because if you're just looking through all the options, you will be overwhelmed by the amount of options. So if you already have a concept in mind, then it makes it, finding that concept is going to be very easy because of all the options that exist there.
Yeah, my only thing with it is I've heard a lot of new players, like when working with them, they open up their Foundry character sheet, they're starting to drag in all their options, and then they hit backgrounds, and then they go, oh my god, what a list.
Yes.
I think it's
when I start with new when I start with new players, I normally talk through this part of the character creation with them. We build their concept together before we even look at any of the mechanical options. And then from that point, it's really easy to find what you're looking for. If you walk in there knowing that a little bit about your character before you even start making it, and just basically having faith that the system will have what you have made in your mind, because it generally does.
Yeah, but I think that it's going to eventually limit new players, because I know a ton.
Not everyone does that way.
Yeah, I know a ton of people who just. I a lot of times also go into games, and this is very bad. Don't do this. But if you do this, don't. I go right into games, and because I do a lot of one shots, where all I do is just select random options. Like I know I'm experienced enough where I could just go, okay, I guess we're throwing in a time traveler summoner. Sure, that's now the character. You know, I've done zombie, teddy bear, monk. You know what? Like, because Poppet's a fun ancestry.
Yeah.
That does not get enough love. But, you know...
Wait, what did you say?
A Poppet, gambler,
Poppets don't get enough love? Poppets get so much love.
They need more. Okay, I think that the next Pathfinder Infinite product everyone should write, and I mean as a community, is a Poppet expansion. I want 300 pages of more Poppet ancestry stuff. I want the only additional pages to be the OGL and the cover. I don't even want a back. Like, there is no back option. No. When I go to print this out, I want that last page to be the last 17th level feat for the...
Okay, I just thought of a way that we're going to, you and I are about to strike gold right here. I just came up with a $1 million idea.
Okay, I'm hearing it.
A Poppet versus Leshy war book.
Oh. That's dangerous. You already know the Botanical Bestiary is coming out soon.
We're going to get them on board with us.
Oh, yes.
You and I would design the puppets, they'd design the lusties, then we'll have them fight each other.
Plants versus puppets. Rare backgrounds have been pretty interesting. I wish normal backgrounds weren't so went in such territory, but given that these abilities / filtrations are shoved into the rare zone, it's troublesome. Yes and no. Cass, I agree with you mostly. I think this is something that Pathfinder has done an interesting thing with. Because in Starfinder you have your themes. In a 5e, because obviously we got to compare it to the big game in the sky, the
5th universal
edition.
Standard.
Yeah. Their backgrounds or themes are very much in line with the character. Like, you could still use your criminal background abilities even going into higher levels. I personally think, in a Prophet, I'd love to hear what you'd have to say about this, is that I think that because of the skill feat you chose, that is the ongoing additional effect. Because, like, if I took battle medicine, I was like field medic as my background, and I got battle medicine, I'm most likely going to be using battle medicine well into my character.
That's interesting you bring that up, and the example you gave is I think a little bit of an outlier, where you picked what I think is literally the best first level skill feat.
Oh, easily. I know. Look. I gotta be the one person who goes, like, but there was this option here the whole time.
Yes, if you pick that one, I guarantee you, if you have battle medicine, you will use it throughout the entire course of the game. However, you pick something like quick jump. Yeah, if you pick quick jump, I don't think your character is going to be hopping throughout the entire adventure like a rabbit.
They could though. Because if you make your character all about jumping, throw that into like some sort of swashbuckler. I'm just saying.
Or catfall, catfall is not something you really can control when you do it, and when it comes up, maybe like twice in the campaign, it'll be nice to have, but it's not going to be character defining.
Okay, so what I'm hearing specifically is that game masters, and if you're a game masters in the chat and you're listening, throw your players off more buildings or cliffs. Really make sure they're getting the prime use out of catfall. Remember, your monsters are smart too. They're allowed to just chuck players off the map. If they could do it to us, we could do it to them too.
Yeah. I think backgrounds would be more impactful if the lore skill automatically upgraded, like the additional lore feat.
Okay. What?
I think that's a homebrew that I think is pretty popular. I did not come up with this idea. I see a lot of people talking about that as an option that they implement into their games. I think that's one that I personally would implement into my games.
Okay, how would you go about doing this? Are you mean like a specific track? Like if I got quick drop at first level, do I then get cloud leap at later levels?
Oh no, I'm talking specifically about the lore that your background gives you.
Oh, like the lore automatically progresses.
Yeah, like the additional lore feat. Like, at 3rd level it becomes 7th level it becomes expert, at 15th level it becomes master, and the show on. 7th level expert, 3rd level expert, 7th level master, 15th level legendary, just automatically.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's just it's just the lore skill. When they use it, like it stinks that you get this lore skill at the beginning of the game, but then if you don't invest like a lot of skill points into it, a level upgrade advancements, that it's just like falls off, and it's like it's more fun if it doesn't. I don't know.
I think it depends. Hold on, I'm gonna cause a little bit of an argument here.
Okay.
So in Age of Ashes, my character had the haunted background, which meant I got Dayhawk lore. Dayhawk is the BBEG of that campaign. I got tremendous use out of that lore, mostly because I was also a wizard, so I kind of like cheated the system. But
wouldn't it have been nice if that's automatically upgraded and you could use those skill increases elsewhere?
Hear me out. Yes.
and I will also point out that I think that is another extreme outlier.
Oh yeah, no. Of course I'm gonna have to bring up the extreme outliers.
Yeah.
Clearly.
I picked the lore that is perfectly suited to the exact campaign I'm playing in, and
So I'm hearing that if I have bartender lore as my background, the entire campaign needs to become a bartender. I need to play it by. Yeah.
I think there's a podcast that is exclusively in a bar.
No. What I'm hearing is that we just need bartending the AP. Like, it's Tapper, essentially, and the entire time it's chase mechanics as you're throwing mugs of ale and root beer around.
There's a board game like that, actually. Oh, geez, it's like a really big one, and you're playing as adventurers in a tavern, and you're like drinking and telling stories and fighting.
Oh, that is cool.
What is that? It's not board game. I'll look it up. I'll keep talking.
I'm reading chat right now. Luigi says, I think it's important to make some backgrounds rare to avoid trivializing certain topics. If being haunted was a common thing, it would have massive role-playing implications. That would be kind of true. I think as adventurers, everybody should come with a little bit of PTSD. I don't think anybody does adventuring sanely. I think, a little bit of trauma to make that character just an extra bit of spicy is the right amount of dosage you need. I don't think anybody would willingly run face first into a dragon. I'm gonna just say this now. I've read The Hobbit. I've seen the movies. I know that dragon claws are like as sharp as like 100 swords. Okay, no one's going into that thing willingly. Reading through chat. Or you could just select Lore Master or Deity. They both have universal lore. I think that's kind of a good point there. But the unfortunate thing about that is that they're both archetypes, and thus you're actively having to make that decision if that's something you really want. Oh, Red Dragon, and I love that game. Sorry, my ADHD is everywhere right now. But those are archetypes that you actively chose to get that benefit with. I think what Prophet is actively saying is that it should just automatically increase like that without you actually having to make the additional choice.
Mm-hmm. That's like normally you can only throughout the course of your entire career only get like 2 skills up to legendary, maybe like a third one towards like the really end of it on any character who is not a skill character like a rogue or a swashbuckler or a investigator. And that those are really hard choices. Like, I mean, if you want to be able to intimidate people on the later sides of the game, you need demoralize. If you want to be able to grapple people, you need to invest in athletics. And oftentimes things like lore kind of fall to the background and your character loses that aspect of themselves and usefulness throughout the game. And that's a little bit sad.
I think, personally, that a background has more narrative implications than it does need to have mechanical implications.
It does, so I don't think backgrounds are bad by any means.
No, I don't think backgrounds are bad either, but I kind of like that your background is a framework for you to work in, and the rest of your character is affected because of that background. And so, if I took the criminal background, for instance, which is a very common background to take, especially if you're like a rogue, that has narrative implications. And I think something that, like let's say 3.5 or 5th edition, or even 1st edition didn't really capitalize on, is that narrative implication of it all, unless your GM is like specifically going into... if your GM's really, really nice and, like, incorporating your background into the narrative structure of the game. But I think my overall point that I was just trying to make here is that I think backgrounds don't need to get to the point where they're at the 5e, thick list of, like, abilities you're going to get from it. Or the Starfinder theme system, where every couple levels, I believe it's like every 4 or 5 levels, you're gonna get a new theme benefit. I don't know. What's your thoughts? Would you rather see a like theme system from Starfinder get implemented, or keep to where we are now?
I love the theme system from Starfinder a lot.
I do too. Okay, I won't lie. I do too.
I don't know if it was right to put into Pathfinder, just because there's already so many progression feats already built into it.
That's what I was thinking. Like, okay, because like if players are already feeling overwhelmed with just class and archetype,
and like ancestry and skills.
Yeah, in general feats, all of the like, yeah, this is before like spells or other variant options you're throwing in. God, like throwing stamina into this mix, and you got like a jungle gym of things you gotta manage. I kind of like that backgrounds are this very static thing. I think using a theme system would work if you have advanced players, like very much of like if you're at in Prophet and High's level, not a hey, I just wanted a a sword and I just wanted to hit things. Like,
I can tell you the reason why they didn't do that though. Is because
I'm gonna hear it.
That would be a very effective alternate rule set. The reason it's not probably in the game right now is because the amount of work that would be required to make something that is only an alternative rule. You'd have to make an entire massive list of feats. I mean, or just like make background feats a thing, and then you'd have to make like 100 background feats for a subsystem, which is just ridiculous amount of like work towards usefulness.
Oh yeah, I think that
it'd be a really cool thing for a third party creator to make, because that's what we're for. We're for doing the large amounts of works for low amounts of reward kind of stuff.
I mean, we do have this option now. I think my only thing with that is I think the free archetype system, and kind of relating this back to the bloat, is when we propose things like adding a theme system, this is going to bloat up the system a little bit more. And so I think this is like why I really, really wanted you here particularly to talk about this, is because you and I do homebrew side of this all. And we're only adding to this. We're not subtracting a lot.
I think you need to keep this in mind. Like, there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol. And like I think as long as like what you're adding is purely either optional or in line with how the game works currently, and you're not like adding anything that dramatically like changes the balance of the game or is a must buy kind of thing, and you're not just like creating a whole bunch of useless stuff or a whole bunch of like super powerful stuff, then it's good calories. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to add to that game. And I think it'd be like right now we have like one item for each skill increase. I think we could use 3 different items for each skill increase, and the game would work perfectly fine. I think every class could have 2 more feats at every level, and the game would still not be bloated.
Okay, that makes sense. My thing is like, okay, what I'm specifically kind of worried about, like going forward, and I don't know if this is James is having like doing his normal thing where he is just obviously overly worrying about nothing important. The more time goes on with this, especially as third-party creators, we're gonna hit a point where Paizo is going, like, Paizo releases a lot in a year. Like, I mean a lot for even a base company. Their work, I agree that it needs to get slowed down, but that's for the sake of the freelancers and, for the day-to-day employees. But as people who do this third-party content, as Sinclair's, as Roll for Combat, really ramps up their work, because they're not going to slow down. I mean, obviously, like, Sinclair's just ended with 140,000, right? Obviously, like, my income's nowhere near 140,000. It's blatantly obvious. I'm worried that we're going to hit a point where, as third-party content creators, we're only going to make the system feel so much more bloated. Like, if it wasn't hitting bloat already, we're only going to be adding to it. What is your thoughts on that?
I don't think that's something that we as third-party contents need to worry about as much, because system bloat really only negatively affects the game when it's coming from the core company. And the reason that is the case is because when the bloat affects new players significantly more than it affects experienced and advanced players. And new players don't generally go looking for third-party content to begin with. They're learning the core rules of the game, and then once they become more advanced and they start like they kind of like grow past the game. They're like, oh, I want more content to play the game that I love with. Then they start looking forward into more options, at which case they are prepared and experienced enough to handle the fact that there's going to be a lot more options once you start diving into the well of third-party content.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed with Paizo is that we're getting, let's say, we're getting 2 to 4 classes a year. Now, I think this is starting to get slowed down. I haven't heard of another book announcement. Like, when we found out about Secrets of Magic, Guns and Gears wasn't too far away afterward. I'm not sure.
I think they're doing playtesting for new things at Gen Con. They haven't announced that they were classes, but they've always been classes. So.
I know they've always been classes, and I'm looking forward to 2 new classes. Don't get me wrong. My thing was that this year we're getting, Psychic and Thaumaturge. But at the PaizoCon, we didn't get an announcement for 2 new classes, which is something we haven't had happen yet. As we're entering year 4 of Pathfinder, what we got was Treasure Vault. And don't get me wrong, very excited for Treasure Vault. And if you you stick around for Deadly D8, there might be some spoilers, perhaps, for Treasure Vault, with a certain Michael Sayer. I can't say anything else. It's in editing. But we're getting Treasure Vault instead of, 2 new classes. Do you think that adding more and more classes to the game, especially someone who just released the Witch Warper for 2nd edition, do you think that is going to cause bloat? Because that's the last thing I really wanted to focus on. Because you can have a million ancestries. Those are easily sorted. They're very, very small. It's not they're not very thick sections compared to the rest of the game, which is unfortunate, but here we are. The class being a important implication to the game, do you think the class system is going to get bloated as time goes on, especially if we're going with the 4 classes in a year system?
What adding classes adds is that is horizontal advancement. And what that means is, in comparison to vertical advancement into a system, we're not building up on anything. We're building wider, adding more base options that can be built up upon later. I think adding new classes, it helps and it hurts different people. It helps experienced players and the advanced players, and it hurts new players. And it's kind of like a give and a take. It's really like whenever a new class comes out, it's fantastic for us because it just opens up a whole new well of content to build vertically on top of. But in terms of once you build a wide enough wall horizontally, it's an intimidating structure for a new player to get into.
Okay, that makes sense. My thing, and this is something that I've encountered, is that this is kind of where the online aspect of it really starts to shine, because you have creators like Nonat, you had creators like Rules Lawyer, Knights of Last Call, so on and so forth. I can keep listing all of the friends of the channel. Just give them all promos for free. But they all have class breakdowns. You have a Magus for beginners. You have Summoner for beginners. I don't know why a new person wanted to do Summoner. It's a very strong one to jump into, but hey.
Oh, you say that, but my new game coming up, I had people fighting for the Summoner. They wanted to play that Summoner. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. I am personally a fan of the Summoner. I think that it's a fun class, but Act Together is a difficult mechanic to explain. But once you get that down, and I think this is true of everything 2nd edition, once you get your niche down, the game streamlines by a bunch. That's true of everything. I just got to the point in Lancer where I feel confident in what I can do in combat. And that took 10 sessions to get to. Now, Pathfinder's a little bit more we don't need to talk about Lancer right now. I will go. This is a whole separate rant I could go into about my...
We need to have a Lancer stream at some point.
Deadly D8 Lancer Edition. We'll get animated mechs that fight each other. It's called Robotech. But yeah, I think my worry with adding more and more classes is that it's going to start alienating a new player base. And I'm not sure how much this is going to affect new people coming into the game. Because I've seen new players, run with Magus on the first try, and I'm like, to their benefit, they got it, like they got the theme of it pretty down. Obviously, if I'm playing with them, I'm there, I can help them out. But that's because I studied this game, and I probably read a 2e material like once every few hours, only just because I have to look something up for a rule. What is your thoughts on 2e as a whole? Like, not even talk about specific systems.
Absolutely.
But I just mean as a whole. We're trying to still get new players to come in. We're seeing an uptick in the player base. Like, regardless, like, we're still seeing more and more people join our community. How do you feel about, as we're getting into year 4, hopefully another whole decade of second edition? What's kind of going through your head as you see Paizo going this route?
Well, Paizo's in a tough position because they cannot stop making content because that's how they make money. It's not like slowing down isn't really an option for them unless they wanted to significantly downsize their staff and their company. So they're in a position where they have to keep making content for the game. It's just a matter of how they implement the content, and I think they've been doing a really good job at not bloating this. The fact that I have one small complaint of an item over 4 years of them constantly spewing out content is amazing. I think they're doing. They know what they're doing. The math is tight. They have things under a pretty good control of where they want this product to look like, and they're keeping it consistent to that. That being said, eventually the life cycle of the game will catch up to Pathfinder. A no game system can go forever because new content has to constantly be created for systems, and eventually it will get bloated with too much content, and a new system will be made. It is an inevitable truth of all games, is that eventually the company will die or the game will get a new edition.
Kat says just make the new classes that come out uncommon or rare. Herder,
that's kind of the way they've been going, yeah.
I mean, I think Paizo, and I keep pointing to Book of the Dead, because it is by far my favorite Pathfinder 2nd Edition book yet, because the layout is so good. And I think this is what Paizo, and more specifically third party, should also be doing, keep that in mind, third party creators, is having the segmented books like the way they're doing. Because Book of the Dead is one central theme. You then have a player, a GM, and then a lore section, with adventures and stuff like that. And I think that is the absolute, the perfect route Paizo can go, because that is limiting the scope by a lot. They're still pumping out new content, but it's not here's an ultimate class guide with 10 new classes in it. Have fun.
Yeah, that'd be ridiculous. Why did anyone make anything like that?
I don't know, first edition. Tell me, why would we get an advanced class guide with 10 new hybrid classes in them?
I think they've been doing this for a long time now, though. My favorite book that they have made, besides the core rules and whatnot, is Gods and Magic, and that is a really focused, segmented book, and I love reading that book. It's so easy and fun to read, because of how well organized it is.
I think that Paizo, overall is going in a very good direction with how they're handling, as a whole, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I've seen, from my extensive research, because obviously 2nd Edition is, if not obvious already, 2nd Edition is my love of my life. And I was not a part of a generation that had grown up with the system yet. For me, 5th edition was roughly out by the time I was getting into TTRPGs. Then I jumped gun to Pathfinder 1st edition, and that was a giant mess. But I'm saving that conversation for Tommy from Black Dragon Gaming. But I think that the way they're handling their APs of making them 3 instead of 6 is a very smart route in that case. And I think if we get more books like Book of the Dead, we're going to start seeing less of the worry of a bloat happening. Or at least we can maybe prolong it, a little bit longer. than other systems like 5th edition, which releases like Tasha's or Xanathar's, which is a giant expansion of the game.
I think it also makes creating easier. Remember our last time we were on a stream together and we talked about top-down design. That's what these books are. They're top-down design. They have a theme, they have an idea, and they build the book around that instead of building a bunch of mechanics and throwing it into a book.
Yeah, I think that this is the route that I think homebrewers should go. I mean, obviously, if you're just doing homebrew for fun, you're posting on Twitter for free, maybe in a Pathfinder Infinite title, you can obviously, do your very single, this is my one thing that I really, really want to do. I'm really, really proud of this. This is just what I wanted to throw out into the world. I think that's great, but I think as time goes on, like seeing Sinclair's library, like I know the scope of that project because 1, I'm on the team, but 2, I've seen what the Kickstarter has been like promising in this case. That is, I think, where collectively all of us should be heading towards, is we've had enough foundation laid out. I think that expanding on it is going to get a little riskier as time goes on, but I am super looking forward to seeing what Pathfinder is going in the future. Is there any other thoughts you would like to add to the potential bloat that we might feel in, year 8 or 9? Oh god,
Ooh.
Imagine we hit year 8 or 9. How many classes are we going to be at then?
I think by the time we hit year 8 or 9, we're going to be ready for at least I think I will be ready for 3rd edition.
I'm so curious to know what 3rd edition would even look like. I'm not even that's a whole other conversation to have.
You know what I would love to see in 3rd edition?
Okay, let's hear it.
I would like to see I somehow build the system in such a way that there are no misses.
Like you can't miss an attack roll?
Yeah. I mean, maybe on like a nat 1 only, or something such as that.
You're talking about... Okay, I think I know the exact thing you're talking about. Mark Seither did a what-if variant rule stream one time, and it was just like, they had a miss mechanic, where it's like a partial success on a hit, and you still dealt like a little bit of damage.
That's not exactly what I'm talking about, no.
Okay,
I'm talking about almost like an overhaul of how the system works altogether, where it's not like a question of whether or not you're going to hit, it's a question of how much damage you're gonna do, and that's what's determined. And like armor would be like damage reduction instead of like reducing your chance to hit.
Every pixel count says I would love to see them add depth to pre-existing systems like crafting. Guess what? They are Treasure Vault, Paizo.
Are you a plant? Are you a Paizo plant coming us to ask questions?
This is how I get a marketing job over there, okay? Let me lay out the foundation, okay? And after this, it's bugging the living crap out of Aaron Shanks, love you. But, it's slowly bugging the entire Paizo staff until either they throw their hands up and, put a big restraining order. James is not allowed to come even within 50 states of Seattle, or they hire me. Either one comes first. But I think that, I think Paizo's starting to really hear the fans. I'm really, really looking forward to it. But I think an advantage you and I have is we can publish whatever we want whenever we want. I mean, let's be honest.
You can't control me.
Yeah, of course I can. I don't get damn it. I think that we kind of have the advantage where we can see what people want immediately and then probably have it out by a week. If we really wanted to like push it, we could probably have it done in a few days.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, obviously depending on the scope of the project, but yeah.
Obviously, no, we can write 350 pages worth of a book in a day. You tell me you can't?
I could. I would not recommend you purchase this book. It would not be very good.
Take enough Monster Energy drinks and give me enough coffee. I can totally pull it. But yeah, before we do a full-on wrap-up, so we talked about the Paizo side of it. Where do you see the homebrew, the third-party side of it, come up? in this like conversation, because obviously we're a factor in this game too. I mean, a lot of people really like using third-party content.
Yeah. And what context?
In the context of Bloat, because we're adding to the system. As we're starting to get into year 4, you know, we still have to think about even potentially what a year 5 could even look like. Where do you see
really
third-party adding to this?
Because third party has like exploded in the recent like year, and when I first like came into the Pathfinder scene, like about a year and a half, 2 years ago, there wasn't a lot of third party content because I went searching for it because came in as pretty experienced tabletop gaming, and I like latched onto the rules so fast, and I was like, I want more stuff. And I went looking for more stuff, and I had a real hard time finding resources for third-party content. And that is one of the reasons that like it initially inspired me to start just creating tons and tons of free online content for people, so that when they go looking for it, there's stuff there for them to find. And then like in this last year, all these people started stepping up into the scene, and we had Pathfinder Infinite come out, and now there's like third-party content every which way I look.
I don't know anyone who makes third-party content besides you. I'm just strapped for an eldritch something. But yeah, I'm really proud of the community as a whole, and I said,
what I'm saying is like I think we're still in like the early stages of third-party content being created for Pathfinder. I don't think we're anywhere near the point where it's going to start becoming. I think third-party content starts becoming bloated when you go to look up something for third-party content and you find 4 different answers for it. Like if I went to go look up like what's one of the projects you recently did? Any plugs you want to throw in?
You know what? We just released Witch Warper. That was cool.
Yeah, if you went to go look up Witch Warper Pathfinder and you found 4 options, I think that's the point where third-party bloat. I might have gone a little bit too far. But I don't think we're anywhere near that step yet.
They should just add another action to the Action Economy for new editions. Behold, the 4th Action Economy. Yes, I have said this before on Twitter. It's a wide range of reception of 4 Action Economy. This is what Pathfinder GDP should be. Is we don't measure our gold currency, we measure the amount of actions we get. By the time we get to like Pathfinder 7th edition, we're running with like 20 Action Economy.
That'd be pretty funny.
What
I was saying in terms of my system is almost more of like, have you ever played the game Gloomhaven?
No, but I am actually interested in it. I've
it is
into it a little.
Very good. It's like a 5-year campaign in a box that doesn't require a GM.
There are like 4 Inquisitors. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Inquisitors.
And how the system for attacks works in that game is that you don't they used cards instead of dice, but you could replicate it with dice. Is that whenever you make an attack, you just flip over your damage card, and it tells you your attack has a damage, like this deals 2 damage to this attack, and then you'd flip over a card and say like, +1, so now the attack does 3 damage instead of 2, or say like -2 damage, or but you could easily make like an 8-sided dice that had all the pluses and minuses on it or something.
That is certainly an interesting route to go with, but definitely would be an addition real.
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously have to build the game around the fact that, you know, people will be taking damage all the time. But it makes it just makes there be no real bad turns. Or turns where you feel like you waited 30 minutes for your round to come around and then you missed an attack and nothing happens.
Yeah, I've played a monk, and all 4 of my strikes missed a flat-footed opponent.
Yep. Once the first one misses, it's super demoralizing, too, because then it's like, oh my gosh, the next one's going to be, like, even more or less likely to hit, and then after that, it's just like, I might as well play the lottery.
Kinda. With my luck right now, I have not been able to roll high in, like, a long time. People joke about Pathfinder math being real tight. You know, they're very proud of this. But then I start rolling up to the table, and every one of my players are going, oh, we won't die. He can't roll above a 2. And that's true. I couldn't. I had a literal BBEG fight, like an ending fight, and not a I'm telling you, 2 players walked away with taking no damage. Not because it was healed, because they weren't hit once. And I hit them with breath attacks. I hit them with hitting them like with my claws and stuff. It was a dragon and a few other like automatons. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The dice here are what the issue is. Always the dice.
The problem is that you're rolling dice yourself. You need to make them roll the dice. Have them make saving throws.
I did! What do you think the breath weapon was for? And then they critically save because it's level 15. Because then they're like, oh, I have improved evasion. Yeah. Okay, make a fortitude save. Oh no, I have improved juggernaut. Yeah. See, this is the issue here. It's the game masters. We're not strong enough.
Another cool thing they could do with the game is to remove armor class. This would be an interesting thing. I don't know if it'd be good or not, but have all attacks either target
Implement
reflex,
a
fortitude, or
Thaco.
will. No, just have fortitude, will, and reflex be everything. Like hammers will attack fortitude, like swords will attack reflex, and do it like that.
I think that would definitely be a really interesting rehaul. But unfortunately, we're starting to we're hitting the time. No, well, not even drifting.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time. Actually, we're about 5 minutes to ending here. Yeah, and if you want to plug anything that you're working on, I'll give my little shout out to Daddy World Anvil in a second.
I make daily content on various sources on Reddit, Twitter, and also I'm going to have my first Pathfinder Infinite product be released in the near future with publishing through a particular company. I don't know if you've ever heard of this company.
Who they are.
It's a bit obscure. Eldritch Osiris Games.
The fact that there's 3 of us who in chat right now. I don't know these guys. They sound like a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, I'm gonna have the uplifted bear from Starfinder be transferred as a Pathfinder 2e race. I'm very excited about it. I'm using every ounce of willpower not to make all the feats bear puns. It's very hard.
No, they should be. No, as the creative lead for your project and / your publisher, they all need to be bear puns. All right, I need Avi K to read this PDF and then just give me a smile and an acknowledgement that we did a good job. And that's the day we know we've truly made enough of the bear. But yeah, I know. I'm super looking forward to seeing this because we're not only getting that amazing daily content, we're also going to get this uplifted bear, and I'm personally really excited for it. I've seen the basic draft of it, and yeah. Is there anything else you want to just give a quick shout out to before we fully close this out?
I'd like to thank the host for inviting me. It was a lot of fun as always. And my mom. You're not watching
That's
this,
a good
but
one.
awesome.
That's a good one to thank.
Yeah.
And as for the rest of you, my lovely chatters, thank you so much for tuning in and getting to talk with us. Thank you, Prophet, for actually getting the time to sit down with me. I know coming up to this event, it was a lot of, oh my god, I might be late on my end. But yeah, I'm super glad that you're very calm and, very, very kind to me during this time. And as for you guys, everyone, you should check out Deadly D8 if you haven't already. We have just released a new animated video with one and only Waffles from Waffle Maple Syrup, and we're also doing daily Pride posts because it's Pride Month, and as your gender fluid pansexual disaster over here, I'm super proud of that. It's legit really great. And also check out World Anvil. They do a ton of great products. I literally can't stop talking about them. It's written in my contract that I sold to get onto this channel, is that I can never stop plugging them no matter where I'm at. So check out worldanvil.com. You can get 40% off a 12-month subscription with the code dd8. And yeah, it's really, really cool. You should check out the timeline feature. It's amazing. Once again, thank you and Prophet so much for doing this. It was an absolute blast. We'll be back online next week. I got another great guest coming in, maybe potential co-host. Who knows? Who knows? But until that, everyone have a great morning, evening, wherever you happen to be in the world, and I will see you all next stream.